Hello there, everyone. Today I'm going to tie a French partridge, which is kind of one of the most classical flies I actually use. This is an imitation of the ephemera Danica, the biggest mayfly we have in Denmark at least. It's a very nice insect because whilst this hatch is going on, even the biggest trouts, even the big one from the deep hole beneath the apple tree or something like that, will come out and grab these. So there's a lot of fancy imitations out there about this fly and stuff like that, with extended bodies made from foam and stuff like that. But I've tried a lot of those, and they look very, very nice in the box, but they do not actually fish very well. And this one does. This one really, really is amazing, and it fishes great in any conditions. And if you trim the hackle a bit, it can be a spinner as well and stuff like that. But first of all, we're going to use some pheasant, then some fly ride, and some fleshaboo in dark copper or bronze, then some CDC, and finally the French partridge hackle. Normally, a mayfly have only 3 strands of tail, but in order to make this float a bit more, I'm going to take a few more, and I'm going to make the tail here around the length of the hook. Some of these have enormously long tails, but this will do the job. So as you can see, about the size, maybe a bit longer than the hook. When you're talking about mayflies, there is 3 different stages, or actually 4. The first of them is the nymph stage, and this stage is the longest, and depending on the species, it can vary from 1 to 3 or 4 or even 5 years, I think. Now we have tied in the tail. I'm gonna take 3 or 4 strands of this dark copper fleshaboo, like so, and this is going to be the rib, because this particular mayfly has some markings on its body, and we're going to imitate that with the flesh here, like so. So once it's done being a nymph, I'm just going to start the dubbing body as well. We're going to make a tapered dubbing body out of fly ride in the color cream, and I'm just basically going to do that now. So once it has matured and become fully grown, it's going to hatch, and this means that it's gonna swim up from the bottom to the surface and break through its old carapace and simply transform into a winged insect. And the reason why the mayflies does this is because when you're looking at streams, there will be a natural occurring drift downstream. So every now and then these nymphs will become loose and simply float with the stream downstream. And if they did not have a winged adult stage, then over time these insects would simply be moved further and further downstream and eventually end up in the ocean. So they simply have this winged adult stage in order to make sure that they can fly as far upstream as possible to lay their eggs, so to counter the natural occurring drifts of the stream. This also means that the adult stage is only a mating state, and this in turn has a lot of other implications, because when they transform into this winged stage, they completely alter their body, so they do not have a digestive system or intestines and stuff like that. They only have eggs or semen, depending on if it's male or female, and so they are actually, because of this, you can actually eat them. You can eat them as well if they have the digestive system, of course. But it's actually something I would recommend you to try and eat one of these mayflies. They are quite tasty. And it takes a bit of convincing the first time, but I've eaten many of these, and I joke normally that it's the Danica season, so I don't need to bring a lunch to go fishing. I don't need that many. I eat a few every year, but it's just a fun little anecdote. So once they've entered this done stage, the adult stage, they will sit on the water for some time to dry their wings. And this is, of course, the most dangerous times for these, because trout will feed on them, and that is the dun stage, where they're sitting on the surface. They're just hatched from the carapace, and they are quite vulnerable because they cannot escape. After the wings have dried, they of course rather quickly. I'm just going to turn the rip here. They of course rather quickly will fly off the surface and onto trees or brushes or stuff like that, until it is time for them to actually meet up with other of the same species in the air. That's why you see them dancing over the waters or over the banks on rivers. You see the mayflies in the air hovering and dancing, and that's kind of like a mating dance they do. Then they mate, then they fly out onto the water and lay their eggs. And after they've laid their eggs, they die. And this normally takes around. Oh, I see that last turn was not completely perfect. I'm sorry about that. I hope you can live with that. I'm sure the trout can. And after they have done that, it looks fine on my side, so I'm pleased with it. And after they have done so, they lay their eggs and then they die. And when they die, they simply just lay with their wings spread out completely to both sides, and that's the final stage, the spinner stage. So if you want to do this dry fly fishing and you want to do it on certain, and there is certain species of mayflies in your local waters, then it's good to have in mind these different stages, because all of these different stages, there is also the emerger, where it's laying in the surface just before it hatches, where it's potentially very good for the trout as well. Now I'm going to tie in a CDC hackle, and I'm going to tie it in the tips, and it's crucial that you get CDC of a good quality. So get some bags with selected CDC feathers. That is a good way to go, because otherwise you can end up spending a lot of money for a lot of fluff that won't work for stuff like this. So basically I tie it down this in the tip, because it's going to be a hackle that's going to support the front hackle, which is made from French partridge, like so. And now I'm just going to add some dubbing here to the front part as well. So as I was saying, in this spinner stage, these are completely helpless because they are dead, but they have shedded all their eggs, so there's not as much food in them as there was before they laid their eggs, but the trouts will still feed on them, because basically it's a free food, you know. But there can be quite a lot of difference between how they feed on spinners and how they feed on let's say duns, because the dun stage, where they're drying their wings, that can take off at any moment. So basically they can be a bit more frantic while eating the duns than they are if they're feeding exclusively on the spinners, because the trouts know that the spinners are dead, so they will take their time. Often they will stand just beneath the surface, simply just sipping every now and then the spinners that come along. So they can be a bit more wary and a bit more easily scared when they're feeding spinners, because they're closer to the surface and will get spooked more easily, maybe. Yeah, of course there are rules and there are exceptions and stuff like that. So basically that was it for the whole life cycle of a mayfly. So now I take my CDC here and turn that. I simply want this to add bulk and to add a lot of floatability, because CDC is without a doubt the best floating material I've ever come across. Like so. And this will provide a lot of stability for my French partridge hackle, and it will also give this fly a bit of a look of something eatable, because that's something that the very realistic imitations often lack. They look truly awesome in the vise and in the box, but out on the water they seem for some reason clumsy and not like something that is living. And I think that's why this fly outperforms any of the realistic patterns I've tried. So you see, there you have the hackle here, made from CDC. I should adjust it a bit like so. And then I have a small room up here in the front to make the last hackle, to make the French partridge hackle that has given the name to this fly. These are some pretty unique and very cool looking feathers. These French partridge. They have a lot of markings and striations, and you don't need a wing for this, because the French partridge hackle is actually going to be all of that in one. So it's going to be the wing and the legs and stuff like that. And why I think this fly really works so well is because basically it looks like, not a damsel in distress, but a mayfly in distress. It looks like, it can be a dun, it can be an egg-laying one, it can be an almost dead spinner and stuff like that. So basically this is just in general a fly that looks like it is food, and it looks like it is a mayfly. And I think that's why this fly really performs so well. So basically I tied this down in the tip again, and then I make sure that every time I turn this, that the hackle is in the right direction. The feather here was a bit hammered, a bit smashed. Hammered is probably not something that feathers can be, but you buy a bag of loose feathers, or you can buy a whole partridge skin if you like. The bags are fairly cheap, and there is a relatively large amount of usable feathers. But of course, if you want the best quality and you want exactly the right size every single time, and then go for the full French partridge skin, like this. I'm gonna tie this down in the tip here, like so. And actually, we are done. Not counting the whip finish and stuff like that, of course, but just a few turns here to fasten everything, so we have a nice small head. And there you have it, looking from the front. A nice and fairly easy imitation that really performs well. It floats great. And this fly is basically just a fly that catches a lot of fish. So this is my go-to pattern for the big ephemera Danica. It simply looks like food. Make my whip finish, cut off the thread, and then the last thing you have to do is, of course, to remove the barb here, because this hook, this is the 5212 Chimco hook. It has a barb and a bob, and of course, when you're fishing dry flies and you're fishing for these beloved, beautiful graylings and trout, primarily, at least I'm not fishing for food, so I always clamp down the barb here, but I don't have my pliers with me, so and basically that's it. Hope you enjoyed.